Hey everybody, this is the Drunk Werewolf, and we will be reacting to Brett Cooper, Why Men Are Falling Behind. Let's get into this.
I'm Brett Cooper. We're going to talk about young people today, specifically young men. My mom sent me a text last night that actually inspired this episode, so you all have her to thank.
Thanks, Mom.
She sent me a Facebook post that she saw, and it just sent me on a Google research spiral, and I'm actually very excited to talk about this. Not because it's a positive thing, but because I think it is an important topic. Before we jump in, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a comment section or off the clock episode. Alrighty, so this is the post she sent me. It is actually an ad, and it is for a home builder in Boise where she lives, and they said, we have a select number of next-gen homes available in the Treasure Valley area, that's Boise. These plans offer an attached private suite, complete with a private entrance, living area, wet bar, bedroom, and a full bathroom, and its own garage. So if you guys have spent any time on Zillow, or if you have been in people's houses, you know that sometimes people might have a little attached apartment, and those are usually called in-law suites, or your parents will come move in with you, some extra room for family, or in this economy people are renting them out because everything is very expensive. But now, because so many young people are moving home, builders are making and designing homes for this next gen. So kids have a place to live when they apparently, inevitably, move back in with their parents.
Hey, Ma! Can we get some meatloaf?
Just that alone is upsetting. There's obviously a market for it, but it's just upsetting. But obviously, this is a needed thing because Gen Zers living at home is well documented, but especially men. And I want to focus on men today.
Oh, I see she pulled the bait and switch. You notice that when she was talking about more young people living at home, meaning both men and women, that's what the data shows. But when she wanted to make her point about how this is a bad thing, she's like, oh, well, it's the men. Most men can't just stay at home like the women are able to because they're women. As far as the in-law suite, that's been a thing for the longest time. And some people are actually renting out the in-law suite in the house because it's so hard to find a place to live that is affordable nowadays. So they just live in a rented room. It's not because young men just don't want to work and they're just feeding off their parents, although I wouldn't blame them if they did.
Today, because as I was doing this research and reading about these next-gen homes, going on this research spiral, almost everything was about young men. And so we're going to focus on them. So here's an article, Rate of Young Men Who Still Live at Home with Parents on the Rise. A recent Pew Research Center study shows that in 2014, for the first time in more than 130 years, adults ages 18 to 34 were slightly more likely to be living with their parents at home than they were to be living with a spouse or a partner in their own household. They were more likely to be living at home, and that has only increased since 2014. And much of this number is driven by young men. Now, obviously, it is important to note that the state of our economy, the current state of our economy, is probably playing a significant role in people, recently deciding to move back home.
No way! The economy and how shitty it is leading to young men staying at home, or just people in general. I'm shocked. And the fact that there is more men, slightly, that are living at home as compared to living with a spouse is also due to the fact that women don't want most men, so most men don't get in relationships. And the ones that they want don't want to stay with them, so they're usually not going to be living together because they're not going to be together. Because the woman who's going for the top guy is just sleeping with the top guy. She's not getting commitment. So yeah, we're not getting married anymore. So the number of people that live together is going to go way down.
But that is not the only reason. And I think that waving this off as just a product of Biden and a product of the recession does a disservice to the conversation, and it does not properly hold parents and these young men accountable, because this is not a healthy thing. Obviously, I'm not Not saying that, you know, multiple generations living together is a bad thing. Like, I love that families are close. But if men are moving home because they're coddled and they're not independent, that's not a healthy thing. Nobody convinced me that that is healthy. Now, this article...
I noticed she didn't mention the women, even though women are more likely to stay at home because they are more protected by the family than men are. And she said, oh, well, it's a bad thing these men are at home and not independent, not out on their own. When it would actually be smart to live with your family the longer while you're building up your career so that you can save up money to buy a house or something. So, and this is the frustrating thing with this feminist, is that she's just pointing everything towards the men and not looking at the women, that the women are the ones going to college, getting the degrees, having all this money, and then doing nothing with their job because they got a crap degree. And then they want to be mad and sit at home and then blame the men.
Brought up one of these other factors just a few paragraphs down. To add to the rise in this trend, the study also shows that there has been a drastic decline in employment among young men that makes them more likely to live at home compared to women. This trend seems to reflect the increase of young women who choose to marry older. Well, yeah, if I have to pick between somebody that is living at home without a job or somebody that is older and actually taking care of themselves, yeah, no shit.
That's a false pretense. That's a false comparison. Most young men are not sitting at home with their parents without a job. But most men don't have the type of money that older men do. That's why women, younger women who are 18 to 24, usually date older. It's just how women are. And this Ben Shapiro looking girl can't erase away the fact that, yeah, men aren't working because there's nothing to work for, because women are terrible nowadays.
We're going to go a little bit older.
He has a 5-year plan.
What is it? Don't die?
Now, this was something that I had no idea about, genuinely. Like, this shocked me. And it's also important to note that this was happening before the recession. This started before 2022, 2023, when people started getting laid off. So again, it is not just men in their 20s losing their jobs because of our current state of the economy. They are just not working. Here's another piece on that from Insider. Young men aren't working as much as they used to, and they have less financial freedom than previous generations.
That is a catch-22, because the more you work, usually, you aren't getting much financial freedom, because a lot of jobs are minimum wage. And the jobs that need a bunch of, people to work in them is usually service jobs and low-paying jobs. And you're not going to find financial freedom unless you work like 60 to 80 hours a week, working over 20 years. Maybe then you can buy a couple of houses and get a little bit more financial freedom, but definitely not financial freedom.
No wonder they're moving back in. 4 decades ago, 85% of 25-year-old men were working full-time. In 2021, it was 71%. That's not like a little dip. That is a significant drop.
4 decades ago, a man could have a job that was 30 to 40 hours a week and have a house and pay for the entire family and support multiple kids. Now, if a guy has a 40 to 50 hour a week job at minimum wage, in today's economy, they are struggling to just pay their own bills. So that is a false pretense. That's like acting like it's the same.
Financial independence among this group declined from 77% in 1980 to 64% in 2021. Like, no shit, they're not moving out. Like, no wonder builders are creating homes.
Yeah, no wonder we don't have financial independence, because these minimum wage jobs offer so little compared to the stuff we can get with the money nowadays is so little compared to back then, and the wages haven't gone up with the price. So of course, people are going to be struggling
for the next gen. Like, this is crazy. And as a side note, teenagers also are not working. My generation is the first generation to overwhelmingly not have summer jobs or part-time jobs in high school and college. So when or if they end up entering the workforce after college or high school, they have no experience. And that was something that I learned when I was doing my business program at Berkeley. We were studying interpersonal relationships in the business world. And it was interesting seeing all of these HR departments at these huge corporations preparing for Gen Z. And obviously they were preparing for, how digital they are and all of their emotional issues. But one of the biggest things was they had to prepare for Gen Z having no experience in a work environment. Never having punched a clock, never knowing how to report to somebody. Again, that's not healthy. That's crazy. Now, in addition to not moving out and not getting jobs, young people are also not getting their driver's licenses.
I ride a bike.
Okay, so they're not getting their driver's license because women aren't interested in the average man, and they never get attention from women, so why would they deal with women? That just makes sense, because the gas is really high and you have to spend an absorbent amount of money, probably multiple summers, to even be able to afford a used car. It's not as cheap as it used to be. And the workplaces, these minimum wage jobs like McDonald's and Wendy's and stuff, customers treat them terribly. It's a shitty job where you don't get much for your money. So they would just rather not do it and enjoy their childhood. Which there's nothing wrong with that.
Bicycle.
Again, all of this is just showing how stunted they are. I mean, do these young men even know how to cook? Do they know how to grill? If not, they need good ranchers. Because good ranchers can not only supply you with amazing meat, but online they have...
Bicycle.
Again, also not getting their driver's licenses.
I ride a bike.
Okay. The thing is that vehicles are very expensive, even used ones. You're looking at $6,000 or $7,000 at least, usually, if you want a decent used vehicle. And then those used vehicles need gas, and gas is expensive. So realistically, you have to work a couple of summers to even get a used vehicle, on top of the driver's license, on top of working at a shitty fast food place like McDonald's or Wendy's that treat you terribly, that customers treat you horribly, and it's just not worth it. They'd rather enjoy their childhood. And the thing is, no one is that stupid that they can't know how to punch a clock, because what do you think we learn our childhood doing? We go to school, which is a microcosm of work, because they learn under an authority figure and everything. So this is ridiculous. Even the most, people on the spectrum know how to punch a clock because they want that money to be able to buy whatever they want to buy, including Legos and whatever, things they enjoy, even if it's not for a woman.
Bicycle.
Again, all of this is just showing how stunted they are. I mean, do these young men even know how to cook? Do they know how to grill? If not, they need good ranchers, because good ranchers can not only supply you with amazing meat, but online they have recipes to teach you how to grill it. Now, as the 4th of July approaches, we are coming together as proud Americans and savoring the delicious taste of homegrown American-made meat. My friends at Good Ranchers have the best quality meats you have ever tasted, and they only sell meat that was raised here in the USA, which is important because the majority inspiration, or you're just looking for a way alone might be able to save young men. I'm putting that on them. You guys have to work on that. Now, might be able to save young men. the air, bringing joy, unity, and delectable flavors to your celebrations. Head to goodranchers.com and use our code Cooper for $30 off any box. Again, that's goodranchers.com, promo code Cooper at checkout. I mean, seriously, Good Ranchers alone might be able to save young men. I'm putting that on them. You guys have to work on that. Now, apparently, the days are gone that you would, be up bright and early on your 16th birthday, heading over to the DMV so that you could finally have independence. You could finally get your driver's licenses. Your parents would not have to ride with you anymore for your learner's permit. You would go hang out with your friends, maybe take a girl on a date. Not happening. One article said, in 2013, National Geographic noted a Michigan study showing that the percentage of 19-year-olds with a license had fallen from 87% in 1983 to 70% in 2010, and that the percentage of 17-year-olds fell from 69% to 43% during the same period. And then tying in what I said before, economics seems to play a role. PBS reported in 2017 that teens just don't get summer jobs as often as they even did 20 years ago, which means both that they have less need for a license, they don't need to leave the house, and less money to pay for driving expenses. They can't get...
Why do you think that men... It said it right there. Why do you think that men would get a driver's license? Because they're not going to be able probably to afford a car because of the economic hard times. And the fact is that men got cars back then because they could date women and take women out, where in reality nowadays you need a lot more than a car to take a woman out.
Gas. They can't buy a car. They can't even contribute to buying a car, helping their parents get them a car. They are stunted. They do not have any independence, and they do not want the independence, which is the craziest thing to me. Washington Post even wrote about this year in February, and they had some anecdotal stories, which were all over.
Oh, I'm sure it's crazy to you because you want all these... Be a good boy and get independent and try to get with the women so the women can divorce you and take your stuff, or live with you long enough so the woman can take your money. You're not fooling anybody, you feminist. You're not. It's all about the female hive mind.
Over the place, and they were kind of focusing on the climate angle of this, that so many young people just don't want to get a car and don't want to drive because it's apparently killing the planet. But this one from a young man stuck out to me because it is so against everything I thought I knew about young men, that we traditionally think about young men of wanting to leave the house, striking out on their own, going and taking a girl out, whatever. This is just like a sad little baby bird.
You don't know crap about young men, and you don't know the struggle. Because it's not like a sad little baby bird. It's insanely disrespectful, especially considering the only reason you have as much money and are as popular as you do is because of young men, because it's just like those OnlyFans chicks. That's basically what you are. You're just the PG version on YouTube, trying to shill your beauty for money and views. Not that I think you're beautiful, but lots of men do. I think you look a little too much like Ben Shapiro. And the thing is, these men, they can't get a woman. So you're trying to preach something that won't happen, because they can get a car and they'll be able to get an old beat up car after working a couple of summers, most likely. And then no girl wants to be around an old beat up car because she can't get a decent car. You'd have to save up multiple years for that, or take out credit, and that you have to do that as an adult. So what's the point of getting a vehicle if you can't do that thing?
Who just cannot leave the nest. Just listen. Gabe is 23. He waited to get his license until he was 20 and did not get a car until 2 years later. Quote, I didn't want my parents teaching me. He also felt ambivalence towards America's car-centric culture, only getting a car because his job as a peer mental health worker required one. Quote, it would be so much better for everyone if public transit were just more accessible. Like, why were you thinking about that at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old? That was a bigger concern for you than being an independent young person, getting a job, taking a girl out on a date. Like, that's crazy.
I'm sensing a theme. She's just really worried about young men not taking women out on dates and letting the women use the men for their money. and providing these experiences with women. Are you just shocked that men actually are logical and pretty smart, that they will think about that kind of thing when they're younger? Because they're not just worried about, oh, I want to go on a date, and I want to go to this restaurant, and I want a prom date. Because men don't think like that. Regardless of what you may think, men actually have things on their own that they like, apart from women.
To me, like, who is this? I just do not understand. Now, if you're not depressed yet, buckle up, because we are still going. We're not finished. Young men are out of the dating pool. Back in February, the New York Post wrote that 6 out of 10 young men are single. And these are the disturbing reasons why. That's what they wrote. And it is not because they cannot find a date. And I'm sure some of them maybe feel like they can't, but they are choosing this. Again, that is the most shocking part. They are making these choices for themselves. They cited Pew again, and Pew found that nowadays, 63% of men under 30 are electively single, up from 51% in 2019. Experts blame erotic time alone online as a major culprit. What do you know, guys? We're back to porn. Haven't talked about porn in a while. We are today. Quote, young men are watching a lot of social media. They're watching a lot of porn, and I think that they are getting a lot of their needs met without having to go out. So they are choosing not to date. They are choosing not to do what they are biologically designed to do, which is pursue women. Try to sow the seeds. I don't know, you might...
You know, it's interesting that she slams men for watching porn because they need to get their rocks off somehow. And that's what porn does for men. It satiates that, you know, the sexual desire for women. But I noticed you don't get mad at women for being on social media and being on YouTube and trying to get likes and clicks like you do, because that's satiating your desire for male attention. And yeah, porn. You're lucky that porn's around, because if porn wasn't around and there was all these young single men who can't get a date or can't find someone of quality to live with, they would riot. And this country would be extremely unstable, because we're faster and faster becoming a pseudo-hypergamy. What's the word? Not hypergamy. Pseudo-polygamy country where the small percentage of men are sleeping with all of the girls. Or polygamy, even if they don't know that they're all sleeping with the same guys.
Might cringe at that, but that is literally what men are biologically designed to do. And modern young men feel no need to do that. And I'm sure some of...
Yeah, because they don't feel that you guys are worth it, because you're not virgins, you're not fit, you're not feminine, you're not friendly. And most of the time if we get married, we're just going to stop being able to get laid. So what's the point? When in reality, we can just hang out, have fun with our friends, and live a relatively decent and non-expensive life, and just enjoy ourselves while we're here, because we're probably not going to get babies. And if we do, they're just going to be taken away from us through the family courts.
Of that is because modern dating is a shit show, and I want you guys to be clear. I know that, I understand that, but also the porn and the time online is a huge factor. And you guys know I've talked about it a lot, but it is a major problem. Like, why would these guys go out and date and try to find connections when they can have parasocial relationships with OnlyFans girls and sex workers online and superficially satisfy their sexual needs alone, which we know in the long run will only hurt them emotionally and physically.
Napoleon, don't be jealous that I've been chatting online with babes all day.
So now, looking back at everything we have talked about, this situation is just abysmal. Like, young people, especially men, we're going to still focus on men here, are living at home. They are not getting jobs when they're a teenager or when they are in their early 20s. They're not getting driver's licenses. They're not dating. And all of that is interconnected. They have no motivation to go out and meet women, so why would they leave the house and try to impress or meet one? Why would they get a job so they can support a family if they're not even dating? They aren't taking girls on dates or going to work, so why do they even need a car? They are stunted. They are coddled, partially by their parents and society, but mainly by themselves. And now, even though all of this is upsetting, I'm not making this episode to be an attack on young men. Like, I don't want you to think that I'm going after you and saying that you're doing it.
Yeah, you are. You basically just ragged on young men for an entire video, and then at the end you're like, no, I'm not. I am not blaming you, even though you're trying to actually blame them. Because last time I checked, women aren't doing their job either. There's not a bunch of women that are getting married. The opposite, they wait until they're older to get married and have kids. And men are, you can argue, fail to do their job, but women are failing to do their job. And that's to get married and have kids young. If you're not married by 21, you are a failure as a woman. And that's not happening. So everybody's failing, and I'm going to enjoy the collapse because feminists like this just want to rag on men, pretend to be traditional, these Tradcons, but I guarantee she's not a virgin. I guarantee she's not married. We know she's not married. And why isn't she in a relationship with someone that she will talk about out in the open? Oh, that's right, because she needs to appear single so these men can continue to give her money and likes and views. Because you need to appear like you're single, even if you're not.
Everything wrong, and I think that my audience is probably way above all of this and doing much, much better. But I'm just hoping to show you guys that young men need support. We hear about feminism all the time, and women screaming about how awful men.
No, your audience is not above it, because they are young men. Because you're a young woman, so obviously they would find attraction to you. Even if I disagree, and think that you're like the definition of mid, and look like Ben Shapiro. I'm not attracted to you, but most men are, especially young men.
But they are facing the ramifications of that. The male suicide rate is skyrocketing. Male unemployment, skyrocketing. All of this. That should sound the alarm. Young men need strong parents who push them out of the nest, who get them offline, who make them get jobs when they are young. They need mentors who challenge them and push them. Now, if you are a young man watching this and any of this rang true for you, if you are having a moment of self-awareness, start to make some changes in your life. Because you have the power to do that. Because a lot of this is young men making these choices for themselves. So get up, leave the house, go touch grass, go listen to Jordan Peterson. This is not a life that you want to be living. It's not good.
Oh, now she's going to explain to you what life you should be living as a man. And this is just the one video that has proven that all women are feminists, even though she tries to be a good little Tradcon girl. Even though she went to a left-wing school in college. But, ignore what the women are doing nowadays and just rag on the men. That's why I say Tradcons are just another sort of feminist. It's all about the woman. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown, and this is the Drunk Werewolf, and I'll see you guys in the next one.